I can assure you the last thing that we were doing back then was a breakdown like that. Like just didn't happen. And now it's like, now I get it, you
Hmm.
know? But then there's always that other side of me that's like, I kind of want to go a little stupid here, but I'm gonna try to not. I'm gonna try to not.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't think the sonar projection of it is for me, but yeah, good luck selling it anyway. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. I am very excited to be welcoming on Joshua Travis, JT, the multi-string machine. Thank you so much for coming on the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, I got reached out to about this podcast from some of your people, and got word that there's this new solo project that you're working on, and I got to listen to the 2 tracks that are already out as far as the time of recording this, and I was like really excited and amazed by that. And so that's definitely a talking point for this podcast that I want to talk about, but obviously want to chat
Cool.
about, breakdowns, guitars that go past the 6-string mantra and just other things in the mix. But yeah, I really appreciate you making some time for us for the show today.
Of course. I'm happy to go through it. And let me just start by saying I don't know a whole lot here. I just do whatever I do. So if you come with some theoretical questions, I already have no answers.
No. I'm a firm believer in, I feel like there's people that get experience in this music, and it doesn't need to be like I had to go to the school of, metal
Yeah.
music or things like that. And I think that's sick, honestly. I think the accessibility of this genre needs to always be that. But before we get into the music chats, we got to check some bevs, JT. So it's tradition for the guests to go first. So tell me what you're going to be sipping on for the episode.
So I figured, I'm not a drinker, and I don't really do like a lot of coffee. Like sometimes I do, but I figured for this I would try something that I've never had. I'm a big fan of sparkling water,
Mm-hmm.
but I find a lot of sparkling water isn't sweet enough for me to be like, oh, this is sick.
Yeah.
So today we're trying something called Celsius. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but it's a sparkling water. And it just like when I when I was reading the can, it says essential energy, and I was kind of like, really?
Do you want to
And then
flex the can for the
yeah,
for the
check it
video
out.
people?
Check it out.
Oh, okay.
You know about this at all?
I haven't seen that, but that's so it's
Yeah,
kiwi
I've never seen this one.
and is that guava?
Kiwi. Yes, exactly,
Mm.
exactly. And they call this one live fit. I don't like how that works. I don't like that.
I don't like how that works either.
Do you know what I'm talking
know
about? You know what I'm talking about. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those two, but the can looks great. So I haven't even opened it yet. I have no idea what this is going to be like. So we're just going to go for it. What do you have? What do you have?
I love the raw reaction.
Okay.
I'm a big sparkling water head myself. That being said, you probably noticed the large amount of liquid
Yes.
death behind me, so that's what I'm drinking for the show.
How does that work out? Because I have a bunch of friends that are like all about liquid death. I've never had it before in my life. What's it about?
Okay, so here's the little pitch that I can give you. So, Liquid Death is essentially a startup idea that started as a way to kind of shift from plastic water consumption to aluminum cans, because plastic, as we know, isn't actually as recyclable as what it's been marketed to us. But aluminum cans is like an infinitely recyclable material. So the whole
Yeah.
idea of liquid death is like death to plastic. So there's like a why behind that, plus just all the cool badass branding versus like Aquafina or Smart Water. It's like, why can't we have, death on a can and make it look
Right.
like you're drinking an energy drink or that? And, just to give you some added context, we actually had the VP of lifestyle marketing on the podcast very early in season 2. So Sticks and I have
Cool.
had an ongoing back and forth, and he'll just call me out of the blue and like, I have a skid problem in Canada. How many can you take? And so I got one sent to my house and then one sent to my parents' house in Toronto. So it's we ride hard for Liquid Death here on the Scoped Exposure podcast.
Very cool. Is it literally just water, or is it like?
Yeah. So this white can is just still water, and then there's like
Okay.
a black Guinness looking can that's the sparkling kind. And then super
Ah.
recently they've launched, like, they were only rocking that for like years and years, and then only recently they introduced some flavored versions, but those aren't available in Canada yet. So that's the burden for me right now.
Well, you know what? I hope I get to talk to Liquid Death one day. I hope that gets to happen.
Yeah, dude, I will set you up with their people. They seem to really care about the hardcore community and wanting to make sure everyone's staying hydrated while out on tour these days.
Yeah. Cool.
But, dude, crack that open. I'm really excited to get your thoughts on it.
Also, we should, not that we necessarily need to point it out, but it does say no sugar and no preservatives. So first, I gotta have the smell test. That's number one.
Right. What do we smell?
Okay, it's pleasant. It's
Pleasant,
very
okay.
it's very bright. It smells very bright. Oh, okay. Yeah, this smells pretty good. Let's see how this is. Oh. Oh, this is pleasant. This tastes very bright green.
2 pleasants back to back.
They did great. They did great with this. This is good. This is good. Okay. Wow, that's very different. Let me just one more.
Just one more sip. I've never had someone do their bev check of the episode and like they're like, "Whoa, I have to really live in this moment."
This is very interesting. This is very different. This doesn't strike me as sparkling water at all. This is like, there's jam-packed full of flavor. Wow. Very green. Way to go, Celsius. You did great, folks. You did great.
You did great. Well, Josh, let's do a proper cheers. Stoked to do this conversation with you, and thanks for coming on again.
They know. Thank you for having me, and cheers to you, my friend.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Since we're gonna get into music chats, obviously, what's your take on bubbly?
I don't want to lie and say this, but I believe that was where I first kind of went heavy with sparkling. I feel like that was my first. Well, that was the first one that had a flavor that I was like, this is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like it didn't take long before I was kind of just a little over it.
Yep.
Just kind of like it didn't stay with me very long, but it is good. But and then after that I didn't try like very many other ones. There's a company like like Chipotle has this product called Izzy, and like I'm not positive that it's sparkling water, but I believe that it is. But they have something there, and it's like a blackberry Izzy. Oh my lord! It's like, I don't know that it's like, this can't be good for you.
Right.
It's too good to be good for you. It's way too good. But this doesn't have that almost soda feel. It doesn't have that. It's crazy. I gotta taste it.
Yeah, I always ask because I find that most people, when they're like, "Oh, I'm super into bev culture," and I'm like, "Oh, like what do you drink?" Like, and then the only thing that they can say is bubbly, and I'm like, that's like the starter pack maybe.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I've just found so many better sparkling waters out there, like whether that's Aha or like Spindrift. It's I just feel like a lot of people just get stuck in the very like cookie cutter surface when it comes to beverages.
Yeah.
And you have to really go on the hunt to find some good stuff.
Yeah. That coconut water is like, that stuff's crack.
Yeah.
It is so. I had to like stop myself from drinking it. It's so good. And like real, like, I don't know. I guess in the long run, it's not that expensive, like for a drink. But it's like, drink is. I feel like they're bigger than this. I feel like they are, and they're like maybe $2.50, something like that. Maybe $3.
Yeah.
And I'll smash one of those things in like 45 seconds. Like, it's no problem. I can't sit there and sip on things. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm like super into something, I just give me it all.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't
It's
help
just
it.
like
So
just squeeze the
yeah,
whole
so,
can.
so I had exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to like chill out on that stuff because I mean I was going through those like crazy, putting them on riders for like when we're on tour, and then I have to like run around and make sure nobody's stealing my coconut milk because they will. You know,
Yeah.
and I shouldn't even call it coconut milk, but that's just what it feels like. It's too good to like be like, this is like coconut water. No, it's not. This is like milk.
I
That's
think
what
if
this
it's the
is.
same brand that I'm thinking of, my wife, I always get her the grapefruit version of that,
hmm
and again,
hmm
she just slams it because it's just so
Yep.
delicious.
It's too good. It's just like too good.
So, Josh, let's get into some of the music stuff. Any new guests that I have here on the show, I always like to ask them a very like basic intro question about getting some context about how they got into this whole heavy music world that we're all a part of. I know that you've done a plethora of interviews over the years, so you can either give us the Coles Notes version, the super fleshed out version, whichever length that you want to go to as far as how you initially got put on the path that you're on.
I guess like back when I was in high school, I was a band nerd, and so this is probably gonna sound super weird, but I didn't listen. I didn't listen to music outside of band. Like
Right.
band was my thing. Like that when I was just thinking about music, it would be like band, and I was like really heavily like into marching, and so
Okay.
like that was the kind of stuff that I really listened to, and so you know whatever year this was, m- um myself and two other of my friends in the drum line, we did you remember those pep rallies at
Oh,
school where
absolutely.
everybody's in the cafeteria
hmm
doing whatever. So we did a trio, the three of us did like some big triple drum solo thing, and I of course I had to be super extra, so I had like two kicks, just a huge kit, and
Right.
there was some part in the maybe middle or end of it where I did this long double bass thing, and that was that. Everybody was freaking out or whatever. So the assembly is over. We're tearing, all three of us were tearing down our kits, and a group of dudes walks up to me, and they said, one of the dudes, he says, "Hey, are you in a band?" And I'm like,
Is this band?
"Yeah, yeah." You can clearly see I'm in band,
Right.
and he's like, "No, no, 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 no. Are you in a band?" And again, I'm like, is this like a trick question
Right.
or
Right.
something? And then he's like, like I don't know who he said, either like Red Hot Chili Peppers or like whoever, Rage Against the Machine. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying right now. And he's like, at this point, now they realize I have no idea about anything to do with any bands. And they're like super, super cool dudes. They're like, you should stop by our practice spot sometime. We like listen to some stuff. And I'm like, okay,
hmm
cool. So literally that day, we met up after school. We went to the band practice house, which was one of the guitar players' house, and we go over there. And the first two bands that they showed me were Korn and Tool, and hearing that stuff was like, I don't know. There's like pop the top. It was just like, what am I listening to right now?
Right.
And that was like where it started out of the gate. And I think the next thing I heard was like Machine Head, Soulfly, Sepultura, like just a bunch of heavy bass, Fear Factory.
hmm
And then it was like, I'm super stoked on all this stuff. And then somebody put me onto Meshuggah, and it was over. It was over. It was over.
Yeah.
And that's like what began the journey. Like Meshuggah was a little later, but not much after kind of really the inception of getting into all of,
Mhm.
just metal in general.
Yeah.
It didn't take long before it was like, oh, this is like really speaking to me.
Mhm.
And at the time I still played drums. So it was kind of like, figuring out how they're doing everything they're doing. And since I was like a drummer in school, it was kind of like I could break things down to like put together like visually what they were doing.
Mhm.
And then it made sense like that, just from coming from that background.
Right.
And fast forward, I am did that, and that was also the first band that I was ever in. That was like my local band, and that's where it was. And then I met basically the person whose fault it is that I stopped playing drums and went to guitar. I met him. He was working at a local music shop, and I went in there just checking out drums. I was gonna get my first double bass pedals. That's what I was doing there. So I'm going in there and I'm like, okay, here's all these double bass pedals. I'm like, and I saw some that were hooked up to one kit. I didn't need to play the kit. I just wanted to see what the pedals felt like.
Mm.
And so I'm sitting in there. The drums are kind of tucked in the back just a little bit. And so the workers are up this way, like pretty far, like towards the entrance of the building.
Yep.
So I sit down, I'm looking around, making sure I'm not about to rip anybody's head off. So I sit down and I start playing Fear Factory, like on the kick, just like playing these like patterns and stuff. And I felt it.
Mm.
I felt somebody was staring at me. Like I'm just, and I look over and this dude's staring at me. I'm like, he's gonna come over here and tell me to be quiet.
Yeah.
And sure enough, here he comes. He's walking towards me, and he comes up to me and he says, "You playing Fear Factory?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, am I playing too loud?" He was like, "No, are you in a band?" It's like, I was like, "Yeah, I guess I am." And he's like, "Okay,
You're
that's
like,
cool." And
I
he's
know how
like,
to answer that question now.
yes, I did. I was like, yes, I am in a band, but why? What's up? And he's like, I have a CD of my band. You should check it out. And then I check it out. Fast forward again. Now I'm in the band with these dudes
Mm.
and playing. We're at a practice space there, and playing in this band, playing their material, and watching this. His name is Nate, and watching him play guitar was like so awesome, like, and watching what he was doing and how he was doing it and how he's making like music speak, and how you can kind of create the vibe with the tone and the tonalities and note choices and all of this stuff was just like, this is so sick. I literally one day I told him I'm quitting, and he's like, what? I'm like, yeah dude, I'm quitting. And then I was like, I'm quitting playing drums and you have to show me how to play guitar.
Wow.
And he was looking at me like, you being serious right now? Because
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Mm.
And he was like, okay. And he literally took me under his wing and started teaching me, and for years.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's still teaching me stuff today. Like,
Mm.
like this is like one of my oldest friends, and like that's where things really shifted when I went from drums to guitar and then started like learn that, which is why I tell people like, so what did you learn on, like, on Skinner or something? And it's like, dude, I started on 7 strings because
Mm.
that's what they played,
Yeah.
then. So I didn't have like your traditional, I got myself my first 6 string and did whatever.
Did my
Like,
scales.
no,
And yeah.
none of that. I started out learning like, I don't know, Meshuggah, Morbid Angel, Deicide, like just heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And that was like me with guitar at the beginning. And then after a while, once I felt like I could take my training wheels off, then I started, I guess, kind of developing what I do,
Cool.
rather than, sticking to everything else. So that's
Yeah.
basically what brings us all the way up to here.
Yeah, there's a bunch that I want to go deeper on and break down a little bit more. So going all the way back to when you're doing band in school, because as someone that was definitely into music, I think that there's, at least in my school, there was like, you need to play some kind of like typical band instrument, and then you could get like into the drums or doing like the cymbal crashes or things like that. So
Yeah.
when you were
Yep.
saying band, I was kind of waiting until you're like, oh, I played the clarinet, or I did like, the saxophone or whatever. So what did you have to do before that, or did you go to drums right away?
It was the very first thing I ever did when I was like a kid, like way before even getting into band, was my mom used to always tell me, like, when I was super young, like it was one of these Supermans, like way older ones. And she said when I was a kid, after watching Superman, I like ran upstairs and tried to learn the theme song of it on the piano.
Oh, wow.
So she ended up getting me piano lessons for like not long, maybe like 3 months or something like that. And that was the end of that. And so but as far as in school goes, It was immediately to drums.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I remember something about like some wind instrument, and I was just like, no, I don't want to play that thing.
No.
It's just like, no, I'm not doing that. It didn't even seem cool, didn't look cool. And fast forward to like high school, it's like I freaking love brass.
Right.
Like brass is so like, oh, but I don't want to play it. I want to listen to it.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah,
I'd rather
there
do
are
something
different
that
strokes.
accompanies it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was the same. Because when in the school that I was in, I think I was like playing euphonium for like 2 years,
Hmm.
and I don't know why I'm thinking about this now, but my first girlfriend in high school, we both played euphonium and we sat next to each other. And mid school year, we broke up, and then we were still having to sit next to each other with this giant
Oh.
fucking thing. Um, but I think based off of like, there's jazz band and things like that. And, there was guitar, but I was like, well, I want to play like I was listening to Slipknot and Devil Wears Prada and some of that Rise Core in the early days. But,
Hmm.
there wasn't anything of a lick of that. But, fast
Yeah.
forwarding a little bit, it's pretty interesting on I think how musicianship is built is entirely reframed now than it normally was. It
Hmm.
isn't going to your local music shop and then you get lessons and then you kind of do this. It's like kids can just watch you on Twitch or like some other big guitar
Yep.
player and then they just like practice and just get super nerdy about it. And so I
Hmm.
think that's really cool. There's not like a constrained way to like get good at guitar. As long as you have like the discipline to like put in the
Yeah.
work, then you can get it through multiple means.
Yep. I totally agree.
Mm.
I mean, if we would have had the stuff back then that we do now, oh, bro, I would probably be so sick at guitar. I would probably be freaking so sick.
Mhm.
But me, really, in real life, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, that's the real life thing. Like,
Sure.
somebody's like, teach me this about how you do this. And I'm like, well, they're like, give me an E chord. And I'm like, hold on. And I turn on the tuner and I find an E and I'm like, okay. And then I go, bring. That's how I give you an E chord. I
Mhm.
literally don't know what I'm doing. I don't.
Yeah.
I just, whatever I'm feeling or hearing, that's it.
Yeah.
So if we could have had those kind of tools way back then, like, I'd probably know a lot more than I do now. I
Yeah.
probably would.
Yeah. But even going back to, your start on drums and just like the rhythmic style and you like kind of working that through your feet and then seeing someone else do that just on a guitar that intrigued you enough to do that as well. So
Hmm.
like you said you started with 7-string guitars. Do you remember like the very first time you picked one up?
It would have been one of Nate's for sure.
Mm.
I was probably an Ibanez, like an RG. Like when back then, all we played was Ibanez RGs, and it was like that was our thing. We, 7621s and 7620s or something like that.
Mhm.
And once we've been doing it for a while, then like I learned everything from him. So all of the stuff that I got was because he got it first and he knew what was sick. And then we all the way back to when EMG pickups didn't fit in guitars. So we would have to literally get Dremel tools and
Yes.
route out the guitars and
Yes.
stuff to like wedge them in there. Like this is from like way back then. So like I said, like he really like took me under his wing and showed me a lot of stuff, amps, cabs, picks, strings, how to really like put your tone together and all of that stuff. It was like he's like monumental in everything. And yes, like what you were saying, like watching what he was doing, and like there's a lot of percussiveness and rhythm in guitar playing. And since I was coming from drums anyways, like I feel like I just took drums harder to guitar, and really focus on rhythm.
Mm.
And that's why I'm like I'm not a lead player, because I don't focus on that. I really try to get, I don't know, see how wild I can get inside of a 4/4 pocket, and what kind of things can you do inside of that, between muting and playing percussively and things like that. But then you get to stack melody on top of that, and then I start trying to find the tensions in there that make you feel something,
Mm.
So it's like not really like a theoretical thing, but a lot of people have told me that what I do is very theoretical,
Yeah.
and I just don't know that it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
So-
it's very clear that you can speak to, it's probably the most smart way of like explaining how like that version of metal or gent or whatever you want to call it actually like compiles together and how it compounds.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on like? Because I have definitely seen this wave of in that space where it's like kids are starting similar to yourself, like starting with a 7 string, starting with an 8 string. But maybe they don't explore the rest of the guitar as much as people like yourself or other experienced people have done. So what do you think is like a piece of advice that you would say to someone who's like, it's cool to play in that space, but like you don't have to just use the top 2 strings. Like, is there kind of like a
Hmm.
misconception there, or is there kind of like you see that lack of creativity, so to speak?
That's a hard one, and that's because it's really deep, and like I feel like a lot of people, when you see them utilizing like the low register more than anything else, it's because they want to be low.
Mm,
They like down tuning, which is like a thing. I have been obsessed with down tuning for, I couldn't even tell you, like decades.
mm,
Like that's been my thing literally forever. And it hasn't changed to this day. To this day, it's even lower than it was back then, and like I think I don't know, I tell people the same thing all the time, and it's like, don't limit yourself, and I try to not stick around any one area of the guitar. And like one of the big things that I see a lot is people that are predominantly 6 string players, when they see people like myself and other players that play things 7, 8, 9, 10 more string guitars, they they just talk a lot of shit about it. And it's kind of like, some people, that's all they know how to do, rather than be open-minded about something and see like, well, I wonder what I could do with something like that.
sure.
They just think it's, if it's got more than 6, it's trash. And it's like, to me, I feel like this is going to take me back to my band nerd days.
Right.
You remember how we have sections in a band? Like you have this, your brass, your woodwind, whatever. Like you have so many different sections. I look at a 9 string as that. So starting from your high E, it's like you have your sopranos, and then you have like a middle area, then you have like a kind of lower area, then you have the low area.
Mm,
So I don't look at it as a 9 string guitar tuned in C sharp standard or something. I look at it as having 9 voices.
mm.
So,
Yeah,
another
that's a
way would
good
be
way
to
to
like
say it.
say, right. So
Yeah.
it's like I have 9 singers, right here. So now it's more about what can I do with them? And you don't always have everybody belting out things all the time.
Right.
It's like sometimes, you take your steps and move around, and then you got the big points where everybody's doing something.
Mm,
So I would try to say, just be explorative and see what you can do with this stuff. And another thing is the tunings. Like I get that the books say this is this, this is how this is tuned, this is what you do. And I'm gonna say,
yes.
how about that? I'm gonna tune like this. Like there's literally a point in my 9 string tuning that there's 2 of the same note. Literally, it's the same note, same octave, same everything.
Mm.
The only difference is one of the notes is tuned slightly sharp, slightly.
Oh,
So
interesting.
when I hit these notes, well, this is the idea with that. So you remember I'm saying I have 9 voices.
Yeah.
Try to treat them like nine actual voices,
Hmm.
right? So if I was to take 2 people, have them sit right here, and tell them both to sing me a C,
It's
will
not
they
going to
do it?
be 100% the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're
Wow.
going to go like this. They're going to just like kind of play around with each other.
Hmm.
And so generally, if you can, with a guitar, I can get the notes really close. So it's going to create natural chorusing.
Hmm.
So anytime and any point if I play a chord and I hit these 2 C's, those C strings are going to just jump out in the chord. So now, no matter what, and especially if I have multi-tracked guitars, they're going to be jumping out even more.
Mm.
So that's just like, I would love to see people do things that are like not the same thing that everybody does.
Yeah, and
I would love to see
I
that.
think that experience drives that innovation when it comes to different things. Just as you said that, it made me think of a friend of a friend from a local band from where I grew up. They were a 3-piece band, and he was the only guitar player. And what he would do is he would run both of his heads and cabs, and he ran like a very cheap like Boss DD3 delay, but he just
Yep.
had it like repeat once and just like
Hmm.
as just so it sounded like two humans playing a
Just
guitar
goes like
versus
this.
one signal.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
yeah,
That's like a super old school trick. It's very awesome.
Mhm.
Very awesome trick.
yeah. Yeah, so I think I think you're right. It's very easy to jump into it. Like I remember, one of my favorite bands of all time is Kublai Khan, and I remember because they definitely played more in that like DIY hardcore kind of space, and
Yeah.
people would give them shit because they played 7-string guitars, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm sorry, we're not taking a 6-string and tuning it all the way down to A like the Ghost Inside or
Yep.
bands like that would do. But I think a lot of people are just kind of over time more open now, and I think it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's definitely good to see. You brought up the 9-string guitar, and I saw that Kiesel just did that, like you did that demo video with them, so
Mhm.
talk to me about that.
So that that whole thing was just a very awesome, interesting process. Like the oddly enough, like the main A&R person at Kiesel is a very long-term friend of mine. So long-term, he was the first person from any company that I ever had a deal with. And he worked with EMG pickups back then. So EMG pickups was my first endorsement ever in my life. And so once I found out that it was Chris that was A&R there, it was just kind of like this major full circle type of thing that happened.
Totally.
And it was just really cool. And he sent me something to try out, and because I had a bunch of friends that already played Kiesel, so I was kind of just curious. Like I had never gotten to play one, so I was like, yeah, I just want to check it out and see what it's like. And he sent me one, and I was kind of like, whoa, okay,
Right.
this thing is sick. And he's like, let me send you something else. Just try something else out. Here, try an 8-string out. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Sends me the 8-string, and I'm even more. I'm like, whoa, like these things are freaking outrageous. He's like, let me just send you something else. Try something else out. And he was really like, he wasn't like, it's just the craziest process. He was never like pushing me to make some kind of choice or anything like that. He was like, try them. Just play it. Just play it. See and tell. He's like, play it and tell me what you think of it. Which is like not how it really works. It's like it's kind of like, if you want to do a deal, we'll do the deal. Here's what you get. That never happened. It was like, just here, tell me what you think of these things, and we'll go from there. And that's exactly what happened. And then I started talking to Jeff, and the idea of doing a 9 came up, and he just took it to the next level. Where I've played a lot of guitar companies, and I feel like I have never had an experience like this. When I wanted to design something, but generally you don't get to just say, I want to do this, 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 and this, and then the company's like, okay, cool. That's not really how that usually works. You kind of have parameters you kind of have to stick, in, unless you're just getting something like some luthiers building it for you, then you can get whatever you want.
Yeah.
But if it's like, a big company, this is what you get to work with. And Jeff didn't do that. Not only did he not do that, but he built 3 different versions of it. He's like, so let's do this, but then also let's do this, but then also let's do this. And he's like, I'm going to send everything to you, and now let's see what's right and what's not right. And so even before we even did any of that, we went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, like all speccing these things before we even go to the build process. Then comes down to like, what do we want to do for pickups? He's like, well, I don't have these, but we can look at this company or we can look at this company. And then the next day he calls me up and he's like, never mind, I'm going to make you pickups. And I'm like,
you
what?
madman.
Yeah, he's just like, that's just how much he like really cares. And it wasn't like I was talking with anybody else. Like I was talking with Jeff, nobody else.
Yeah.
Like every single step of everything to do with this thing was me and Jeff. Like sitting here on the phone, sitting here text messaging, sitting here on freaking Zoom, like back and forth, back and forth. And then all of a sudden they're all here. And the next thing I know, I'm like, all of them are sick. Why do I got to pick one? He's like, because we got to put out one. What are we going to do? And it's like, all right, fine. All right, this is the one, but I need to put this piece into this one. He's like, done.
Yeah.
Send it back. I'll do it. And it was just like, the process was just like unreal. Like, because it just doesn't happen like that. It doesn't work like that. I know from experience with multiple companies, it does not work like that. It just doesn't.
Mhm.
So to be brand new here and have the owner sitting here with me like this,
Right.
this is what we were doing.
Yeah.
You know, like just the craziest process.
Mhm.
Just crazy. It's like something that you don't really imagine that's how it's going to go down, because it's never been like that for me before, ever.
Totally. I have a very selfish question because we kind of been dancing around the subject. Like, what would be the biggest piece of advice that you would give any musician of any level if they're like, I feel like most people aren't in a position where they can be going after a guitar or an amp company as far as like a sponsorship deal or working out something. But if their band's on tour a lot of the time and they really see the value in what they're doing and how they could bring that value to that brand, like what's a proper way? Like, is it them? Do they need to come to you? Do you need to pitch yourself in a certain way? And I'm kind of in the midst
Hmm.
of that myself, so I want to
Yeah.
pick your brain on that.
Well, first things first, just get the touring and all that kind of stuff out of your head, because there's a lot of super successful people out there that don't hit the road at all.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
don't really put that in your head as a requirement. Like, I don't do this enough or whatever. Like, get that out of your head. Being active on social media is a big plus. It's a big plus. But also reach out to companies. But when you do reach out, have something to show them. Give them something that would make them say, what was that? Like, just anything. Because
right.
there's a lot, especially nowadays, like, you don't really have to be a huge name already to get there. All it takes is you to send something and get it into someone's hands or into somebody's ears. Even if you're super green, nobody knows who you are.
Mm,
What if you're just a total sicko, even though you're totally green and nobody knows who you are? Just get it out there. It's never going to hurt you. I promise you that. Better yet, you don't even have to send it to anybody. Post it on Instagram, tag the company that you like. Do that.
hmm,
Start there,
yeah,
because they're going to get a notification about it. They're going to get it. And if you want to go the extra mile, find the company, find whoever it is A&R for the company, send it directly to them.
mm,
There's so many things, there's so many little things that you can do that could be like monumental. Like, you don't have to be a big name. Like, sometimes you don't even have to be that good.
yeah,
Like, you just sometimes you can just be like, you can have a marketable look nowadays, and it's like, you're good, we're good to go with you.
yeah.
And that's just like the brutal truth of it all. Like, you don't have to be that good, you really don't. And so I wouldn't let anything deter you. Like, there's no reason to. There's too many avenues. Like, literally everything is in the palm of your hands. Like, you can reach anybody
Yeah.
with anything. So
Yeah.
just have some material that you can show them. That's it.
No, that's great advice, and yeah, I totally agree because I see different amp companies or guitar companies sponsoring like people that just make YouTube content around the metal community, and I think that's like
Yep.
really cool to be able to like, hey, it doesn't need to be like, oh, these cabs need to be seen by the world when you're playing to thousands of people. It's like it could be seen by thousands of people, but it's just sitting embedded on the YouTube chain. So
Yep.
yeah, I
Yep.
think that's really interesting. What's actually really funny, and I forgot to mention this at the very top of the episode, obviously you've made a bunch of videos with like guitars, but you've also, I actually bought this microphone because I watched your Rode video because I was trying to be like, who else is using this microphone? I was like, oh, Josh from EMMURE is using it. I guess that's
Yep.
a good cosign.
Yep.
But since we're kind of like talking about gear and then you get linked up with a company, but like it sounds like you're always kind of on the hunt for like what the not like the next greatest thing, but always being able to like build the arsenal and the ultimate
Hmm.
understanding of things. So like, does that get complicated when you're starting to tie yourself to different brands versus like being a quote unquote free agent and being able to play the
Yeah,
field?
it does. Yeah, well, it can. It can. Like, I know some people who have somehow or another managed to be able to get deals, non-exclusive deals is what you want if you want to have a bunch of different companies, some with that are the same thing. Say you want to play 4 different guitar companies. You want to play Ibanez, you want to play Schecter, you want to play ESP, you want to play Kiesel, and you want to play Yamaha.
Sure.
So let's just say you want to do that. The only way you can really pull that off is to have non-exclusive deals with all of them.
Mm.
I think you got to have something something serious going on for all of these companies to be like, all right, we'll give you a deal non-exclusive. Like you got to have something going on. Like I've never tried doing anything like that before. I feel like, any company that I'm playing, I'm like, okay, this is who I'm riding with, and you just hope that they ride for you the same way.
Mm.
Like I will say, a long time ago, when I would get a deal with a company, I would just feel like they are just doing the most for me in this world. Like I don't know how, I can't believe this is happening, and like you got to remember to think about you too, and that you are also providing them with something as well. Like
Totally.
yes, they are giving you something, but you are also promoting the hell out of them. And so it's like for a company to give you a guitar, it's like, oh, this is so sick, I got this. But is that all this company does for you? And if so, are you sure that's the place you want to be?
Sure.
Because it's like you want a company that's going to ride for you too. Because like they give you a guitar. Now you're going to play the guitar in however many cities, however many states, however many streams, however many videos. Like they gave you one guitar for all of that.
Right.
To me, that's not a good deal. It's not a good deal. So you got to find the right home for you. And it took me a long time to figure that kind of thing out. So now when I go into new deals, you gotta think about that kind of stuff where it's like, but don't be ridiculous. Like, well, I need 175 guitars for 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's my deal. Don't be crazy about it. But like think about yourself too, because
That's
it's
a lot
easy
of
to
wall
just get
hooks for all those
Yeah.
guitars. Just the entire drywall just comes down.
Yep, this is fun. But
Yeah.
it's like, just to think about stuff like that, because it can get, pretty brutal. But if it's a company that you really, really love and like really want to represent, like I don't see a problem with just sticking with one company either. Like your term is only going to be X amount of years, and this is what your deal is, and that's it. So, even if you don't end up having the greatest time there, it's only going to be for X amount of time. Or you can both, part ways, mutually. Like there's ways to get in and out of all of this stuff. It just depends on how you want to do it. And I just, whatever company I'm with, I ride with them for whatever my duration is. And then once we get to the end of that term, then we discuss. And if it makes sense to go forward, then it does.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's pretty simple though.
Have you ever smashed a guitar?
At least 10 to 15.
10 to 15. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the context around that? Like
So
like
Glass Cloud.
out of actual like anger, or like this is
No.
the guitar that I have to smash.
That's what it was. Like
Okay.
like there was a time when I was playing a company called Legator Guitars, and I had an awesome time with them. And the owner Ken, like I told him, like, because we were a wild band sometimes, like we would get really wild on stage, and I told him, like, there's a high chance that I'm gonna break some of these guitars. And he laughed. He said, "Do it. I'll make you more." And you know what? I did it. And you know what? He made me more.
Yeah.
Like he did. So it was like a mutual understanding. It wasn't just like I got on stage, broke freaking 6 guitars, and he was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah,
No. I told him what the deal was first.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Let's do it."
Yeah.
Because he was down. So it's like you have like the communication is there, like he knows what's going on, and he's like, he showed up to a show when we were playing in like LA somewhere, and he showed up to a show with 4 guitars because he already knew this night I'm breaking 2 guitars tonight. So when we got done with the show, and like one of the guitars was salvageable, we were able to get the electronics out, kind of shave it down a little bit, get new pickups in it, and it was fine. But then he had already brought 4 new guitars.
Right.
So, and then 3 of those guitars got broken on that tour. 3 of the new ones got broken. So
Right.
it was just like a thing, like, but we were wild. Like we were doing some crazy stuff. So
What's
You
like
tell-
the proper, because I've always seeing videos of people trying to break the guitar, and then it's like the first hit, it feels like super like wah wah, like, and it takes like the second, third, or fourth hit. But like,
yeah.
is it more just like trying to swing as hard as possible, or is there an angle that you're trying to get to like
There's
get it?
There's
exploding
definitely
on
an
the first
angle. Yeah, there's an angle, but it also is depending on which part are you trying to break. And also, when you're seeing these people that don't break them, they are not committed. I was committed. I
Fair.
remember there was some stage that there's a pole in the middle of the stage. I knew I was going to break it. So at some point in the song, rather than playing my part, I ran up to this pole and just smashed the neck into it, just all over this pole. And like after that, it's like I took it off and just threw it onto like. But you gotta be committed if you want to. It's
Right.
not that easy to break a guitar. Like
Right.
it's not that easy.
And it's
And
not
plus, you
something
don't
that
want
you
to
can
hurt somebody.
necessarily, yeah, you don't want to hurt anybody, but it's also not something you're just like practicing because that's a very
Yes.
expensive practice to do.
Yeah, we don't practice that one. That's just like, here we go. You're giving it glory right now. Like, but yeah, there's been times when I smashed something and it didn't break, but it's like I would break the headstock off or something like that, which is still useless at that point. I've snapped the necks in half, stuff like that. But breaking the body is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's really
This is
hard.
a thick piece of wood.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
It's really hard to do that. But
Yeah.
I think I destroyed one where the headstock popped off and it snapped in the middle of the neck, and the truss rod was like bending up out of it. Like that was a sick throw. That's what that
Yeah,
was.
that's a very gruesome sounding situation.
It's puppy time.
Yeah, it's puppy time. So Josh, let's talk about your solo project, your upcoming EP, No Rest. So I think the last time I've heard of like a guitar player doing a solo project was honestly Slash. It doesn't seem to be as common of a thing, especially in our space. So talk to me about like what actually prompted you to like do your own thing versus like, oh yeah, I can use this in one of my bands or on the next
Mhm.
EMMURE record. Like what actually prompted you to want to do that?
It was basically that. Like when I go into writing for any project, I write more than we need. So ultimately, at the end of whatever project it is, once the release comes out, I have all of this other material that didn't get used that is basically now just sitting in a hard drive somewhere.
Mm.
And that's where it lives forever and nothing ever happens with it. So it got up to the point where, like, sometime last year, I was kind of like, what if I just start putting out some of this stuff? Like, just as my stuff, because ultimately that is what it is. It's just my stuff still. So I figured maybe I can just put something out. So I did like 2 or 3 releases or something by myself, and then I talked to Sharptone, and then it was kind of like, do you want to do something? And I was like, yeah, I do want to do something. And then it was kind of like, I have all of this back stuff, and I was like, well, I don't want to necessarily use a bunch of that kind of stuff. Like I would like to put something fresh out,
Mhm.
And so that's what we did. And then we sat together and then found guests and features to put on everything. So that's how we did the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it was just a cool process.
So when it comes to the actual features, because obviously you're doing a lot of the songwriting, recording all the guitars, and probably the bass yourself. Yeah, I'm not sure what the drum situation is, but I'm sure you have a lot of say there. Obviously,
Yeah, I did everything on this.
Oh, okay.
Drums too.
Oh, yeah, that
I
makes
did-
sense. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So when it
Yeah.
comes to like the vocal features, because I find as a songwriter myself, I'm always kind of like some parts of a song, I'm like, oh, I don't know what vocally what would be best here, but like
Yep.
some stuff does come to mind. So when you're getting on like any of these cats that you got for this EP, do you just let them write something and then you're like, all right, let's do that? Or like, how is that process?
100%. Every person that had anything to do with it, I gave them zero direction. Every
That's very
single one
cool.
of them.
Hmm.
Because like, I find like more so now than ever before, there's always hands over you. There's always like somebody watching over you. Like, I don't know about this. I don't know about that. Let's flip this to this. Let's change this. And I was like, I'm not going to do that to any of these artists. I just want them to do. I'm talking all the way down to the actual artist for the artwork for the thing. He said, "What do you want?" And I said, all I'm going to give you is the colors, and then you do what you feel. I didn't even let him hear the material. Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. I gave nobody any direction. Nothing.
So
And
wait. For the artwork, you just said I want something black and red.
Red and black. That's it.
Like no
That's it.
name of the. Wow.
I gave him
That's a
nothing.
lot of trust.
Yeah, yeah, and the same thing with all of the vocalists. Which is why, like, I've had other people asking me about this, and I tell them all the same thing. Like, I'm just very lucky that it worked out the way that it did. Like, I
Totally.
didn't have to do anything with any of the vocalists. I didn't have to do anything with the guitar feature. I didn't have to do anything with art. I just said, "This is what I'm doing, and I'd love to see what you can do with it."
Hmm.
And they all just freaking delivered. I'm just very lucky that it worked out like that.
So why were you not like obviously like there's connections to all these people that you're featuring, and I'm sure there's connection points with the art too, but like what prepped you to be like, I'm gonna be so hands off about it and let it just come organically together versus trying to like, because again, like this is your debut thing for your solo project. And
Hmm.
to me, I tend to overthink and overanalyze and just get so in my head about it. So like what actually have you always been like having that mindset of being like, nope, we can be hands off and it can be cool that way? Or did you have to learn to get that way over time?
I think that's what it was for this, was because I'm always extremely hands-on with everything, and it was kind of like, I don't know, I feel like there should be more trust in artists. Like, if you give them the open range to do things, it doesn't always work out great, but sometimes it does.
Hmm.
And like, I felt like every person that was involved in this is like a top tier performer and artist. So it's
Hmm.
like, why am I gonna limit them to my ideas of what it should be,
Sure.
rather than let's just see what they can do?
Hmm.
That's why I gave them no direction. It's like, I want to see, this is a feature. Why would I tell you how to be you? you know
Yeah, that's actually a
so
great point. Hmm.
doesn't make any sense to do that. So I figured, just give you the track, and they sent the stuff back, and I said, you killed it.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
But again, it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you do have to go back and forth and back and forth and get the parts, however you need it to be. We just didn't do that. It's like,
Yeah.
this is it, so this is what we're going with.
Yeah, my band's newest single, the person that we reached out to do a feature, she specifically was like, "Hey, can you write an idea of what you think?" Because we were like, "You can write something, or we can give something to you, whatever was easier." And I think
Hmm.
she wanted a little bit of like a direction, and
Yeah,
what I gave to them, they were like, um, they took what we said and then made it their own, which I think was the
yeah,
good thing. But I that's crazy that you're just like, hey, everyone, here's the songs that you're going to be on. Have fun. And then come back
yep.
to me in a certain amount of time. And yeah, everything I've heard has just been jaw dropping. So,
Well, thank you. You know what the funniest part is? They would send me the stuff, like their features, and I would sit with my engineer Josh, and we were doing everything. I didn't even let them hear the song when it was done.
oh,
Never let anybody even hear their tracks.
yeah.
Nobody. There's still, like, the songs that are not out yet. The people who are on these songs have not heard their tracks yet.
Yeah.
They just haven't. And it's like, I don't know, there's something that's just like really fun about it, because I want it to be exciting for them too.
Right.
And like, I really believe that what we did with everything, I feel like it stands,
Mm,
so it's like, I wanted to feel like something special, like even for the people on the features, where it's like, you know when it comes out, like Andy, the first track with Andy Sizik, he didn't hear the track. Like,
mm.
we put it out and he was promoting it, like, I'm on this track, I haven't even heard it. Let's see what this is about.
That's so interesting because
Yeah.
it's pretty typical that like you get the master from your producer or
Hmm.
whoever, and then you're sending it to your friends,
Yes.
private Dropbox links,
Hmm.
and people get excited then, but to have that same excitement, but it's all bottled up into release day, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I just wanted to do things like, just different.
Hmm.
It's like it gave it. I know, and it's like a very internal thing, but it was like just different. It's exactly like you said. We do the track, and you send back the mix one, and you're like, what do you think of this? And I would like to hear this, do this, and da 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 da. And it's like, no. Here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna send you the track. You send me your stuff. I'm not gonna tell you if I loved it or hated it. And then I'm gonna go with my engineer. If we're gonna do the thing, we're gonna drop it, and that's when you're gonna hear it.
Yeah.
That's it.
But
That's it.
like we were saying, the trust goes both ways. You're trusting them to
Yes.
spin it however they want to, but then
Yes.
it's like, all right, like they could retake that as many times as they want until they're happy
Hmm.
with it, and then you get it, and then you can mix and master it however you want it to get it, and then you both have that final thing. So
Yep.
that's just
Yep.
wild. Like
I know. I
I
told you, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky.
was there anyone that, and you don't have to name drop per se, but was there anyone you reached out to that was like, I want to hear this if I'm going to be involved in it beforehand, or was everyone down with this kind of way to do that?
I think everybody was down.
Mm.
But it wasn't. It wasn't even a. Is anybody down? I just didn't give them the option. It wasn't like that. I never. But
Even
here's
better.
the other side of it. Nobody hit me up and they're like, "Can I hear it?" Nobody
Yeah.
said that. It was just like, I'm telling you, it's crazy how it all worked. The
Mhm.
artist was never like, like, well, what do you think about this? Like, that didn't happen.
Mhm.
He hit me with the art. He was like, boom, and I was like, that's it. The end. That was it. And then same thing with all of the features, everything. Like, Steven sent me the guitar solo. You think that I was like, I'm thinking maybe we could move this part around. Like,
Can we
get the
make it a
hell out of
little
here.
less
Yeah.
noodly? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I didn't say anything. He sent me the stems and I was like, that's done.
Yeah.
Like,
No, this is really, really inspiring because, like, I think for anyone that's involved in any degree in music, obviously they have their like hero main band that, always trying to make sure that you're doing your best and like rethinking things and, taking everything apart and putting it back together in a new way. But when you're doing something like this, where ultimately, like, for both, ultimately the goal should be to have fun, but I think there's like just different stakes for maybe the stuff you're doing with EMMURE versus this thing.
mhm.
So to maximize the fun with this solo project seems to be priority number one, which is super sick,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Who would you like to hear a solo project by within the metal sphere? Or it doesn't have to even be metal.
There's too many. Oh, jeez. There would be this just. I don't even know where to start. There's too many. There's just like, oh my lord.
Mm,
And but at the same time, there's a lot of them that already have solo projects
true.
which is kind of strange, but I get it. Like the person has a very successful band, and then they go to do like a solo thing, and it doesn't get near the traffic, doesn't get near the light. But sometimes that solo project is way sicker than the band is. So it's like, I wish that got more traction. But either way, I'd still love it.
Right.
So always having like that whole thing is it's interesting.
Yeah. So, obviously your main project, like we were kind of alluding to, as well as EMMURE. So talk to me about like because you joined up with that band. I'm not sure of the exact date, but I remember, the very first time that I got to see you band wise was in Glass Cloud, and then doing
Mm.
Tony Danza stuff. So like, what kind of like got your trajectory into EMMURE, and then when you were entering that band, like how you wanted to like. It's always that kind of thing. I recently had this kid named Trey Garris who's drumming for this Orange County band called Dare, and very established drum kind of sound. So we talked
Mm.
about how there's respecting what's been released and laid out, but also being able to tweak things in your
Yeah.
own right. So I'm curious how that was, because EMMURE is a much larger band,
Yeah.
so kind of coming into big shoes. So talk to me about those initial stages.
This is the easy one, a very short one. Back when I was still on the local circuit, Frankie had found my local band on MySpace. We were not known at all. Like, we were very, very, very small. How he even found my band, I have no idea. He's really good at that. He's really good at like finding needles in haystacks, like stuff that
Mhm.
nobody's heard. Like, he's really good at that. But he found us, and we established communication way back then. I mean, I'm talking many years ago, worlds before Tony Danza, way before that. And he had said way back then, he's like, I'd love to do a project with you at some point. And then fast forward, I was in Tony Danza. We've met up at tours and festivals and stuff, and it's like I've just known all the dudes for so long. And then when it came to the point where he needed to basically revamp the band, he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do a record?" And I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And when he first came to me, I I was just excited because I was going to be able to work with Frankie and this monstrous voice that he has. And then once it actually started, the gears started turning, it was kind of like, well, I can't just turn this into some absurd thing now. It's like EMMURE is like known, they have a very specific sound. And then that was kind of like, okay, now I need to get my head into that zone and try to produce material like this, but just sprinkle a little what I do into it. That's
just a little
basically
bit
what
of
I tried to
JT
do.
on top.
Just a little, just there you go. That's all I wanted to do, but I really wanted it to feel like EMMURE still, so that's what I've been trying to do. I don't know how well I'm succeeding with that, but that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah. I was really stoked to see that new record that you guys dropped in 2020. It just like I was listening to it today, and I'm just like, this just sounds like heavier Limp Bizkit. Like it's very very sick. I'm very into it.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. I always like when I get the opportunity to bring on people in bigger bands that have a large discography of music to ask them this question, kind of turn up the heat a little bit. So what, in your opinion, is the most underrated EMMURE song, and what is the most overrated EMMURE song?
Oh gosh. Oh man, I am the worst to ask this question to. I am the main reason because God, this is gonna sound so stupid. I don't know any song names, first off. So you know how every band, you have the set list on the paper taped to something or the floor. That means nothing to me. Nothing. So to me, if they like whoever is out with us, like if my tech or the tour manager or something can't write the song names in a way that I get it, Frankie or my drummer will have to be like, we're playing for like something like Flag of the Beast, which I do know that song now. They would literally look at me and go, da dum 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 da dum dum dum. They would sing me the riff. Like otherwise, because if you were to like back then, if you say Flag of the Beast, I'm like, what the hell is Flag of the Beast? Because when I write these songs, it's not called Flag of the Beast. That's called 2017 Limp Bizkit. That's what I named that song when I sent it to him. So like most underrated, I don't know. I have no idea, because when we're playing these songs, like I have my own mix going on. I have like my own show going on in my head. Like I don't know what's happening in the crowd. I don't know if people are loving it or hating it. I'm disconnected. I'm like somewhere else. Like what would be the most underrated song?
Yeah, and underrated could be like, this would be a song that I would personally love to play live, but based off of like, hey, maybe we can only play X amount of songs. Maybe it doesn't hit that list because it might not get the type of reaction that we want.
Yeah.
It's it's like bottom of this one album and didn't get as much love.
Gosh, man, that is like such a good question. I don't even know. Like, geez, there would probably be a handful that I would be like, man, I really wish we could play that. But like as of late, like we've never supported Hindsight. We never did. So there's no telling I don't even know what people liked or disliked from that record. I have no idea.
Gotcha.
So it's like super hard for me to pick something from that one. But like, Look at Yourself, like, oh man. I could overrated would probably be, God, what Torch would probably be overrated.
Okay.
Because it's just like to me, songs like that I call those tough walk songs. Like that's what they are, because you just it's like it's just like such a tough walk song, and it's like, to me, I like play that song and I kind of sit and laugh about it if I'm like not locking myself into the song, because it's just literally dun 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 dun. Like it's like funny to me when you look out in the crowd, people are freaking losing it, and I'm like, what? Like this is what you're losing it over? And then we have a song called like Turtle in a Hair Machine, and the song is like wild, and then you'll see people that are like,
totally. It's like,
it's crazy how that works. It's really wild, but I'm going to use those two right there. Like Torch, overrated. Turtle in a Hair Machine, underrated.
Gotcha.
Like only a handful of people even get that song because it's wild.
Yeah.
And it's weird how that works.
So that's a perfect segue into one of the final questions that we can hit on, because whether you're in hardcore, in metal, speed metal, beatdown, the need for a good breakdown of some kind is always prevalent, and I think there's always like certain cookie cutter, like very like I find myself when I'm writing, it's like, okay, this is like the stock breakdown that I'm just gonna place here for now, and then I'm gonna try and come up with something later. So,
Mm-hmm.
in your eyes or ears, what makes a good breakdown? And if you want to break that down as far as like the production of it, the technicality, the simplicity, the creativity, like how would you divvy up the percentages of all those?
Man, in today's metal, modern metal, 100% production, 100%. And like, for me, that's not how I would like to go about it. I would definitely like to go about the individual characteristics of what the breakdown is doing. Everything is generally very unison, but it's like the pattern is gonna, also weigh heavily. Like, does it feel good? Does it have like a good bounce to it? Does it have space for it to really like open up into something? Because like that's what I like in a breakdown. And like honestly, I don't really do breakdowns like breakdowns are done. Like there's usually just kind of like just a chug pattern, and I like to put notes into my breakdowns, rather than just like your typical like low thing or just ring out on the low string or something like that. I like to like inject some sort of a melody into it, which kind of veers away from the breakdown aspect, because those typical ones now, they have like a lot of space, bum 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 bum, some shit like that. It's like that's what you would get. But me,
Yeah.
I want to hear like I could take the same pattern and go bam bam, something like that. So now I have something going on. So now it automatically doesn't feel like a stock breakdown. Doesn't feel like that. But we can't necessarily just leave the stock world. Just because it's stock doesn't mean it's not good.
Right.
It's just
It's stock for a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something that it took me a really long time to get into was, and I hate to call it dumbing down, because it is dumbing down, it is watering down, but ultimately what it is it's making things that other people can play with you. And I like that more than, because I'm not going to play that with you. I'm not. But what if I had a song where anybody could pick it up and play this with me? What if I'm playing a show somewhere one day and this one kid, I could just see him just riffing all the riffs right there. I like reach out, grab his hand, pull his ass on stage, and put my guitar on his body, and he just finishes the song. That is so sick. That is so much sicker than whatever the hell this is. Like, I love ideas like that, and it's like it feels like more people can be involved. Which I really enjoy that aspect of it, where being a little more technical is also fun, but I feel like there's a time and place for that.
No, I love that visual of like being able to pluck someone out of the crowd and being like pretty confident that you handing it off to them and they could do even just a half-assed job, even if they have zero musical talent. Because it's because outside of this podcast, I also film a lot of like a lot of festivals and live shows, and when the band comes in with that like a breakdown and like seeing the people do like the bell ride, like ding ding ding, like to see that excitement and that like quote unquote response through that is like is what really seals the deal. And like there is totally a time and place for like stuff that has like the technical parts that people can't do that because they're just putting their hands on their head. They're like, oh my gosh, this band is amazing. But there's something to be said that like just just a certain like pattern can really go, like a simple pattern can go a really long way.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So many bands have built themselves off of that, and it took me a long time to respect that, because it was like, what are you doing? And then fast forward to now, and I'm like, I get it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I get it. Now
Yeah.
it makes sense,
Yeah.
But, you're also talking about somebody that came from freaking Tony Danza. And
Right.
like I can assure you the last thing that we were doing back then was a breakdown like that. Like just didn't happen. And now it's like now I get it, you
Hmm.
know. But then there's always that other side of me that's like, I kind of want to go a little stupid here, but I'm gonna try to not. I'm gonna try to not.
Right. Um,
Uh,
Speaking of things that are quote unquote stupid, how the hell do you play guitar through the legs? I've seen too many videos and photos of that, and I'm like, how do
uh,
you get that set up? Because like once that neck is through your legs, like you're committed to
yeah,
that stance.
you got to commit to everything. And so back then, when I was still doing that, you would notice that I played with my guitar really low
Hmm.
because I didn't really have to noodle. I didn't really have to do very much technicality at all. So I could basically drop it down like pop punk. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah, I could really drop it down low. So basically, anytime that I would be doing that because it would be something that was pretty simple going on and something where I'm just like latched on to first fret or something like that. So when the part's coming up, you just strike open, blah, freaking throw it under, like you can raise your leg up, throw it under your leg, drop down, get down low, and blah 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 blah. Like it's easy, But it was like fun to me because even though it's like a very simple part, I can still have fun with simple parts, which is sick about playing simpler stuff. You
Yeah.
can do more things, you can have more fun. Like my drummer and I, we would like make fun of each other on stage. Like while we're playing, like I would hear him do something and like we're playing and I'd give him the like, and
Right, right.
he would do the same thing to me. Like sometimes I would mess up, he would throw sticks at me. Like it's awesome. But he could actually throw the stick and not miss a part because we're not up here playing like, tech death,
Right.
so we could actually do stuff like that. So, playing between your legs and spinning around in a circle was like, I'm just dancing at that point. That's all I'm doing. I'm just dancing and being a goof. But it's fun to be able to do that and not have to take it all like so seriously. Like
Yeah.
I got to pay attention to all 264 notes in this riff. Like, yeah, I don't have to do that anymore. Like this
Yeah.
is cool.
So like super envious of most bass players just because it's like the responsibility of like even flubbing a couple notes is like unnoticeable arguably
Yeah.
because and then they can be as wild as they want to be. But yeah,
Yep.
I do agree that having like certain parts that are just like a little bit more um just a little bit more freeing to be able to allow you to enjoy yourself a little bit more and do some stupid shit, whether that's
Oh
breaking the
yeah.
guitar or sticking it between your legs.
Yeah. That breaking the guitars is over.
Yeah,
That's done.
it's over. So Josh, we're getting to the point at the end of the episode, so I got one final question for you.
hmm
We end every episode with a favorite mosh story from all of our guests. And that could be anything that's first to your head. That could be something violent, something wholesome, something just scary, funny. Whatever's first to your dome is how we start to end the show here.
It's easy. This is an easy one. This is a Glass Cloud tour. We were in, I believe it's Denver, Colorado, playing a venue, not very big, but I'd say 200, maybe, I'm going to say 200 cap. Like, that's it.
Sure.
But the room is packed. We're talking sardines packed. It
Mhm.
was packed. And we're on stage, we're playing. And kids are going as crazy as they can, being packed as like sardines.
Mhm.
So we're playing, and the stage was like crazy. It's like a sideways, like this type of a stage is very weird.
Mm.
We're playing, so they're just gear is like right behind us, like there's no room, and we're playing whatever song. I don't even know what song it was. We're playing. This kid jumps up on stage, and he is like freaking stoked. He's raging. He's so stoked. And back in the day, there was this, I believe it was a WWF wrestler, and his name was Goldberg.
Okay.
And Goldberg had this move where he would get down like he was playing football. You know how they do on the
Yeah.
line? And this kid got
He's
up on
about to hut it?
stage. Yes.
Yeah, I got you.
This kid got up on stage, and I believe he was in this position because he was trying to climb up onto the stage, and he got there, and I shit you not. I see him like 3 feet in front of me, down, and he looks up at me and launched, and he tackled me
Oh my
on
God.
stage while we're playing. He tackled me, and I don't mean he just hit me. He tackled me,
Yeah.
and I flying backwards, cab flips over, laptop running tracks flips over.
Oh my
I'm
God.
damn near, I'm laying on the floor tom of my drummer. I look up at him, he's still playing, my singer's still singing, my bass player's still playing, looking
Yeah.
over like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, the guitar's just ringing out, and as I'm like coming to my senses, like I just got speared on stage. I look up, and the kid, the look in his eyes, he was like devastated, because I
Right.
think what happens was he got up there and fell, and rather than falling, he lunged
Yeah,
and
someone
just
behind him could have
took
pushed
me
him
out.
or something like
Yeah,
that.
anything like,
Yeah, yeah.
but they couldn't reach him because the stage was really high.
Mm.
So I think he just lost his feet, and he just took me out. I'm laying here, I look up, I see the kid, I see the look in his eyes, and he was like devastated. And I shit you not, this kid reaches down with both hands. I'm laying on my cab right now. Reaches down with both hands, grabs me like this, and picks me up off of the cab, and like brings me to my feet with my guitar on my body. Brings me to my feet, and I could once I'm up and seeing him, it was like he had like tears in his eyes almost. He was so sad, like he was so scared or something,
Right.
and he was like, "I'm so sorry, I'm so like," and it didn't even hurt until like after the show, because I just got speared on stage while we're
Sure.
playing. But that was the most insane time of my life. I literally got tackled while playing,
But
and not just tackled, also picked up like a child. Like you would just pick up somebody that weighs. He picked me up like
yeah,
I weighed
does
like
this
5
kid
pounds.
just
He's
have
just
superhuman strength and just knocked you
Yeah.
down, but still could just like bring?
yeah, lifted me right up like nothing even happened. His adrenaline must
Oh,
have been
yeah, I'm sure.
super spiked.
Yeah.
Like he literally picked me up off my feet weren't even on the ground, bro. Like I was
Right.
laying on my cab, and he just picked me up, and
And was that
That
the
was-
last
that
time
was
that
my
you
life.
ever saw him? Like you didn't connect
Yeah.
after the show or anything?
nope, never saw him again.
Oh man, he probably
That was
like
it.
I can't show my face, dude.
I hope someday, because I've told this story before. I hope someday he reaches out to me like, yeah. that
Well,
was me.
if you're where this in Denver, right?
I believe that it was in Denver, Colorado.
You know,
I believe
we
it was
got some
Denver.
listeners out there. So Denver, the one super strength human kid who took out JT and rescued him at the same time. If you're listening, reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was insane.
Dude, this has been a super great chat. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I hope that maybe we can do this again sometime in the future. All of the links to No Rest and all your other band links and all that will be in the description, the show notes. But if you want to plug anything, shout out anyone, or send the people off with anything, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me. This has been a super, super good time. The only thing I really have is Twitch. Like that's what I do like all the time now. Like so, and I play all of our stuff. I have like, I call it band practice, where I just jam everything that I've ever had to play with EMMURE. I play it all the time. And the link is just twitch.tv the Joshua Travis. Like basically that's what it is everywhere. So yeah, if you ever want to come hang out, I jam all this stuff from the EP, and jamming all this stuff in here. Just tons of stuff, tons of Danza stuff, Glass Cloud stuff. Like I just jam all the time. So I'm always in there. But I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. This has been super fun.
Absolutely. Can I ask you one more question because
Yeah.
you brought up Twitch? What's the craziest Twitch moment since you started doing that?
Oh man.
I was going through some of the videos online, and you were just like playing this breakdown. There was just fire emojis all over the screen, and you're like, I don't know what's happening.
It gets really wild. Like we have a really
Right.
cool community there. They're just super fun, super supportive, and like just there for everybody. But like there's do you ever run into those things where there's like too many things that you're just like, I can't pick one. I don't there's
Oh, all the
It's
time.
like every day there's something new. Like every day, it's just always like it's just a riot. Like there's so many like jokers, and like I feel like I have like a slew of comedians in my community. There's just so many funny people. It's always a great time. Like stop by, just stop by.
Yeah.
It's always a great time.
We'll most definitely link it below and in the show notes. Joshua, Thank you so much again for coming on. And yeah, I wish nothing but the best for you, my friend.
Cheers. Hey, same to you too, my friend. Same to you.